Welcome to Fractional Futures, the essential podcast for CEOs, investors, and senior marketing executives looking to unlock the power of fractional marketing leadership. I'm Paul Mills, your guide on this journey, where me and my special guests uncover how this innovative leadership model is reshaping the business landscape. Whether you're a business leader looking to build a competitive advantage, an investor seeking to enhance the value of your portfolio, or a senior marketing executive considering a fractional career, this podcast is for you. We'll share expert insights, provide actionable strategies, and explore real-world success stories to help you leverage fractional marketing leadership for maximum impact. Tune into Fractional Futures and discover how to revolutionize your business and career.
Hello, and welcome to Season 3 of Fractional Futures. In this season, we're diving into how fractional CMOs can help SMEs and portfolio companies scale and maximize enterprise value. Joining me in every episode is Rob Nicholls, a seasoned CFO, a non-exec director, and a board advisor with over 35 years of global finance expertise. Rob specializes in profit maximization and value creation, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome him to the show. Hi, Rob. For people who haven't seen your content on LinkedIn or not bumped into you on the golf course, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Thanks, Paul. No, really good to join you. We've known each other a couple of years now. I've been back in the UK about 5 years now. I work with SMEs from startups to mature companies, really focusing on the financial and strategic financial positioning of the company and basically profit maximization, margin expansion, and sales as well, but all about leading to value creation. So I've been doing it a number of years. I used to do it in the US. I lived in the US for 22, 23 years. So lots of experience, did a lot of international work. I ran the Middle East and Africa for a number of years, spent an awful number of years traveling the world, if you will. But again, always working from a finance and a value creation perspective. So lots of experience, lots of knowledge around marketing, what does work, what doesn't work, sales, what works, what doesn't work, and very close to it with SMEs now in the UK, primarily, as you know, in the Southwest.
Great stuff, and I managed to get you off the golf course as well. I know you're a keen golfer, aren't you? What handicap do you play off?
I play off a mid-teens handicap, but for me, it's all about relationships, Paul. It's not about the golf. It's about relationships and building relationships, which, that's what it's all about in business, particularly here in the Southwest. So I meet a lot of people on the golf course. I play a lot of golf with people on the golf course. But again, it's about the relationships and whatever it is for you. I'm a big believer in you've got to have something that gets you out there, a little bit of physical activity, but engaging. If you're not known, the biggest crime I think in marketing or for a business is not being known. So you've got to be known.
Absolutely. I think, that's probably a good point to jump straight in. CMOs and CFOs are often seen at being at loggerheads with each other, aren't they? But in reality, I think the strongest companies have a marketing function that works in tandem with the finance and investment teams. But the problem I observe in many businesses, a lot of companies still see marketing as an expense, a cost center, rather than a growth driver. But when done right, marketing can be a powerful engine for building predictable revenue, increasing valuation, and building long-term success. So I want to unpack that a little bit, Rob. In your experience, how can marketing unlock growth potential, particularly in portfolio companies?
So I think we do, to set this up, I think we do have a problem. I think we have a problem within the marketing function, the marketing profession, and more broadly within the business world. If you go back, a little bit of history, go back 2 or 3 decades, if you will, marketing was a big player, was a big part of the value creation within most businesses. And certainly in the last 2 decades, and really since the pandemic in the last 5 years, if you will, marketing has effectively withdrawn from the C-suite to a large extent. I think there's a lack of credibility from many marketing managers in the C-suite. Boards aren't taking it seriously. The CEO and the CFO really aren't valuing it like we used to do. It's almost like the boardroom table has been pulled away and the CFO and the CEO and the board has gone with it. And the marketing person has been left at the bottom of the table with no table in front of them. and other functional areas have become much more influential than marketing is today. So I do think we have to approach this from a point that there's a problem and really understand why we've got a problem. Is it the broader, is it the function? Is it the profession itself? Is it the accreditation? Or is it the individuals themselves doing the marketing role? And a lot of it goes down to the partnerships that we used to have within businesses. Sales and product used to be like this. It's now sales and marketing are like this. They're just not working together as they used to for the benefit of the company. So I do think we have to recognize there is a problem. And then you've also got the problem of the digitization of business. You've got marketing, tactical marketing going down one avenue, short-term tactical operations, which is at the behest of the CFO and the CEO. That's what they want. They want immediate results. They want revenue. And then you've got people like myself and perhaps yourself and many others that come at it from a much more perspective of strategic marketing, partnerships, pricing, the 4 Ps, if you will, understanding the value of positioning. A lot of the boards and companies that I work with, they don't have the fundamental capacity to bring on board a marketing leader. They just don't have the budget to do it. So they've got 25 to 30K. They want to deploy some money around marketing, and they can get a digital marketing executive for that sort of money. You can't get an experienced, knowledgeable marketing director, CMO for that sort of money. So they are orienting themselves towards a tactical, operational perspective, and it's cheap. You've got 25,000. You want to spend it on marketing. That's the way you're going to go. You're going to get a relatively inexpensive person, fresh out of college, doesn't really know as much about marketing or the business world as they should. That's all they get. And they get social media, they get some blogs, they maybe get a little bit of positioning, but they really don't get an understanding of the customer journey, where the industry is going, what the TAM is, what the SAM is, what pricing they need to work on. All the things that we used to do, they're just not being done anymore. So, and it's unfortunate, but I think marketing is being dumbed down to some extent. And yes, the CFO has played a part in that. The CEO and the board has as well. But the Accreditation Institute and the players within marketing have something to answer to there as well. So I think there is an issue.
And I totally concur with everything you said there, and it really pains me to say that, but I would totally agree. As a marketer of over 20 years, I've seen a big decline in the standards of marketing. It's one of the reasons why I set up VCMO, is to kind of improve standards in marketing. And what I see is a lot of business leaders, they don't understand the basic principles of marketing. Very few of them actually had any academic grounding in the marketing discipline. And whilst many people have heard of the 4 Ps, I think a lot of business leaders only think of marketing as one of the Ps, which is the promotional bit, which is all of the tactical activities around advertising and creating awareness. And I think that's a very dangerous position. If you're a business leader and that's how you view marketing, it's not a good place to start. And I think you're right. You touched on the marketing institutions, the Chartered Institute. I think they're making it easier for people, marketers, to become chartered, to become fellows. And I think they probably need to put a mirror in front of themselves and say, are we really setting the right standards for marketers in the UK and further afield? I certainly think CIM needs to be doing more to help marketers win back that influence, to give them the strategic toolkit to really add value into businesses.
And you're absolutely right. And you mentioned one of the 4 Ps. The most important P, to my mind, is pricing. And it's something that really isn't practiced to the greatest degree, but it's probably the most levered of the Ps. You're going to get more bang for buck on that. And it's just not something that's done effectively today. And you're right, going back to the academic side of it, most CEOs don't really have any practical training, any academic background. Most of them don't have MBAs. They certainly don't have marketing qualifications. So they really learn by just doing and by experience. If they've had a very good marketing person, a strategic, experienced, knowledgeable marketing person, they may appreciate it more. But if they haven't, they just won't. And so we do have a problem, again, more broadly, with business education in the UK. There aren't enough MBAs and people with professional academic qualifications that really have the knowledge and the academic prowess to practice what they preach. And marketing is a good example of that.
I totally agree with you there as well. Before I did marketing, I was a chemist. I worked for a large American pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly. And the passage of right to get a promotion in that organization, you had to have an MBA. That would be the only way you could get into senior management. And in those days, in the 90s, a lot of the large blue chips, they would sponsor high-performing employees to do an MBA part-time, whether it's in the UK with one of the leading establishments or in the US. I don't see that so much anymore. There's very few opportunities for high-performing candidates in any functional area to get sponsorship for MBAs. And I think that is part of the problem.
And that, to be honest, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's how I got my MBA. It was paid for by my global technology company provider. We just don't do that anymore. And so we've got a cadre of business leaders coming through that just don't have marketing, business, finance knowledge. And so you can't criticize them. They haven't had the opportunity that many leaders have had in the past. And a big part of an MBA is marketing. I mean, I would suggest it's almost like a third of an MBA is marketing, and perhaps a third is finance, and the rest is kind of ancillary areas. But it's a really big issue, Paul. MBAs are very common in the US. I spent 2 decades or more there, and it's glass ceiling. You're not going to get promoted above a certain level unless you have an MBA. We don't have that glass ceiling here in the UK, and that is a hurdle that people don't have to get over to become a CEO. So that is an issue, and I think it leads to some of the concerns we've got around the profession today, and marketing accreditation. An MBA is a marketing degree to a large extent.
Absolutely, and we've touched on a few themes there, Rob, and I want to sort of move into recognizing gaps in internal expertise. I know particularly in portfolio companies, these organizations may not have the right expertise at the different functional levels. So certainly when it comes to marketing, when investors go into portfolio company, marketing is often one of the things that is scrutinized first. It's often a large cost center, and investors will look at, is marketing delivering value? Are we getting strong return on marketing investment? But sometimes they may not look at the marketing capability of that organization. So when companies lack the depth of marketing expertise needed to scale, what sort of things can companies do to close those gaps?
So I think this is, again, a really important area. I mean, cost is going to be a big part of it here. You don't have 50 to 100,000 perhaps to spend on marketing if you're a startup company or a portfolio company in a venture or private equity backed business. They're going to be looking for returns quickly as well. So, it's a 3 to 5 year timeline, 5 to 7 at most. And so there is scope to invest in brand in that point, in that timeline. But the likely thing is they're going to be desperate for sales. And so whatever tactical things you need to do, whether that's social media, blogs, whatever that may be, that is what's going to get prioritized in a venture-backed company. They're going to want revenue quickly. And so with the greatest intent, you're not going to build a brand and generate revenue opportunities out of it in 6 to 12 months. It's just not going to happen. You can put a little bit of money towards brand building over time and building, putting out a voice for the business, but they're really going to be much more practically oriented towards generating revenue. Again, the other thing is, most of these companies in venture-backed businesses now, portfolio companies, they're still looking for product market fit. They're probably still pivoting to where their sweet spot is. So you've got to be careful and not shovel too much money into one bottomless pit, recognizing that you may well have to pivot in 9 months' time, because otherwise you've basically written off, a couple of £100,000 in that bucket. So you need to hold on to your dry powder, if you will, but recognizing that there has to be a product market fit and a go-to-market strategy that gets revenue quickly, which does drive you towards a more of a revenue generating demand creation aspect that might otherwise be a better approach, a more strategic approach. So you do fall into that trap, if you will, but that is just the case when it's venture-backed, private equity. You're on a much tighter timeline. You're not building this company for 10 to 15 years' time and passing it on to the kids. You're creating a business within a year or so, pivoting once or twice, building a sales. You're going to be focused 100%. In fact, most of the startups I work on, some of them are pre-revenue. Some of them have got a couple of 10, 20, 30,000 a month of recurring revenue, but it's all about generating revenue on a recurring basis. So whatever you have to do, whether that's pitching, whether that's the CEO going out to meet people, and they are basically the point of reference for the business, you just don't have marketing resources. And what you do have is going to be very tactically oriented towards demand creation. Now, I'm not sure how you feel about marketing creating demand, but there is a sense out there that in theory, marketing should be creating demand. Marketing's role is to make sure that people are aware of it, that they build a pipeline, if you will, or a flywheel to generate opportunities that then sales can convert. But again, within portfolio companies, you're probably talking 8, 10, 12 people perhaps initially. Even if you're turning over 1 to 2 to 5 million, you're still going to be a very small staff, and you're likely not going to have someone other than a relatively junior digital marketing specialist, maybe a marketing manager. They may have the title of that. But they're certainly not going to have the 4 Ps experience, the knowledge, the insight, the perspective that they really will need in time. And again, budget is a constraint there.
Absolutely. And I think for a good quality chief marketing officer, which is a luxury very few companies can afford, you're looking at a salary cost of between 100 and 200K, depending on sector and level of expertise. Companies can't afford that. It's a big dent on the P&L. And so one of the bad marketing habits a lot of companies fall into is, because they can't afford the luxury of their CMO, they will have a junior marketer kind of have the expectation that they'll step up to the plate a little bit. And that's what I certainly see quite often is you've got junior marketers who are trying to do the very best thing in terms of doing the marketing, but there's no strategy there. And creating tactics without a strategy is the fastest route to failure. And I think this is why hiring junior marketers without that leadership, it certainly creates a bottleneck in growth. You end up getting inefficient spends, you get disconnected tactics, you get slower progress. So and I think this is really where the fractional leadership model can close those capability gaps, regardless of what functional area we're looking at. But particularly in marketing, fractional CMOs now can really come in, support those portfolio companies, close those strategic gaps, and share their knowledge and vast experience to help those businesses overcome those bottlenecks.
I'm a huge believer in the fractional model. I'm a fractional CFO myself. Just taking a step back, we talked about the marketing knowledge. A lot of that marketing knowledge should or could come from board advisors or non-exec directors. So quite often I will find, even if a business doesn't have the budget to have a CMO or marketing director, even a marketing manager in place, they will probably have someone with some marketing expertise, knowledge, industry-specific knowledge as an advisor on their advisory board. And that oftentimes will be suffice, but they will often guide the CEO in terms of the tactical spend. And that may be a good thing. But equally, I do think the fractional model is a very good model, particularly for marketing, because whilst you really do need a chief financial officer engaged in the business on a longer term basis, and I do 1, 2, 3 days in many of my businesses per month, you may need a fractional marketing director 1 to 2 days a month, maybe a little bit more. The fractional marketing directors that I meet, the CMOs that work on a fractional basis, they're not in businesses more than 1 to 2 days a week, but they can make an immeasurable difference for the same cost. We talked a little bit about marketing costs. I can pick up a digital marketing specialist today for 26 to 28K. They'll do blogs, social media, and so forth. But equally and that's not fully loaded. That's without national insurance, pensions, holiday entitlement, and so on and so forth. I can pick up a fractional marketing director for 30 to 35K a year and get everything I get with the digital marketing specialist, plus the seniority, experience, knowledge, tactical and strategic, but for a negligible amount or often a similar amount. So it really, really is a win-win situation for the business. You're getting the knowledge and experience and insight for the same cost. And I know which I'd rather have as the CFO in the business. I'd rather have the experienced CMO who can add perspective, who has the gravitas, experience, knowledge that can outsource, even do some stuff themselves, whether it's the SEO, the website, the blogs, the social media, but equally can advise and counsel the CEO and the board. Pricing is a key criteria. Digital marketing people, with all due respect, don't really have a clue on pricing. The CMO absolutely will have a handle on what will work, what won't work, where the industry is going, has the capacity to research the industry, look at competitors, look at what competitors are doing. It's a really good model for the CMO. I was reading something the other day that talked to Reid Hoffman, the guy who helped co-found LinkedIn, says that marketing and most professions will be portfolio fractional in the next 10 years. And I think marketing is probably one of the big parts of that as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's one of the reasons why I've set up VCMO, because I see this trend myself. And I think the real value of the fractional leadership model, whether it's marketing, whether it's fractional finance, whether it's fractional HR, is it can de-risk investments for investors. You're getting access to the expertise that you need when you need it at the right time, at the right cost. And I think that's certainly valuable. Rob, you've lived and operated in the US for a long time, and certainly the fractional model is a very big thing over there. It's probably more established than it is perhaps in the UK, where it's still kind of emerging as a new viable option. What's it like in the US in terms of fractional leadership, not just marketing, but generally?
I think it has some similar traits to the UK in that it's embraced by people who embrace it, the people who are aware of it. Equally, you got to remember the US is such a vast geographic area, and the business environment is so broad. Certain elements of the agency model was a big thing. I think it's becoming less of a thing. I do think the fractional model, particularly on the East Coast, is growing faster. It's not so much on the West Coast. I think, we've talked a little bit about salaries. Salaries in the US are demonstrably higher, probably 2x what they are in the UK, but equally businesses and revenues generally are scaled accordingly. So I think it's probably a year or two ahead, but not that far ahead. There are plenty of fractional executives in the UK. There's a lot in the US. There's also an awful lot of jobs in the US. So it's easier to be a W-2 employee in the US because there just are a lot of jobs. And the need for fractional executives, a lot of fractional executives have decided they want to work a little bit less, focus on themselves, build a flexible lifestyle. But equally, the US is an interesting model, but I don't think it's one that should stand up to too much scrutiny at the moment in terms of being better than the UK. The UK is a good model. You can earn a good living as a fractional executive in the UK and blend it with a flexible lifestyle that allows you to do what you want to do when you want to do it and work with those people you want to work with. I maintain that I only really work with people that I really like, really trust and value, and businesses that I believe in. So, and in the same way, they've got to like me and want to work with me, if you will.
Probably a good point to close this show. If you've been listening or watching this episode, I hope you found value from the discussion. In the next episode, I'm joined by Rob again, and we'll be discussing how to assess the marketing health of a business. So stay tuned for that one. Rob, thank you again so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed listening to your insights there, and I very much look forward to hearing your perspectives on the next episode.
Thanks, Paul.